This is the third and final class on antiarrhythmic drugs. In previous classes, we have seen that what is the normal physiology of heart, its action potential in pacemaker as well as non-pacemaker tissue, various types of arrhythmias, and in just previous class, we have discussed about the classification of antiarrhythmic drugs and class 1 antiarrhythmic drugs in detail. So before proceeding forward, let us first revise the classification of antiarrhythmic drugs. Class 1 are sodium channel blockers, class 2 beta blockers, class 3 potassium channel blockers, and class 4 calcium channel blockers. So class 1 and its all three subclasses, that is 1A, 1B and 1C, we have discussed in the previous class. Let us now discuss about class 2 beta blockers. We know that there are beta 1 receptors present on heart, and activation of beta 1 receptors results into increase in heart rate, increase in force of contraction, increase atrioventricular conduction as well as automaticity. So increase in atrioventricular conduction and automaticity can result into arrhythmias in condition of adrenergic axis. So whenever there is sympathetic overactivity, there is a risk of arrhythmias due to adrenaline axis, which can cause arrhythmia due to increase in AV conduction and increase in automaticity. So when we give beta blockers, what will be the effect? They will decrease heart rate, decrease force of contraction, decrease atrioventricular conduction as well as decrease in automaticity. If we focus on beta 1 receptor activation on specifically SC node, then activation of beta 1 receptors on SC node results into increase in IF current, that is the opening of funny channels will be activated and this will result into increase in IF current. This will cause increase in rate of phase 4 depolarization and this will result into more frequent firing of SC node and increase in heart rate. So when we give beta blockers, what will they do? They will decrease heart rate by decreasing the rate of phase 4 depolarization in SC node. On AV node, beta 1 receptor activation will increase in calcium and potassium channels mediated current. So, we know that calcium current is mainly responsible for phase 0 depolarization, that is rise of action potential, and potassium current is responsible for repolarization phase. So this will result in increase in conduction velocity, which is determined by the calcium current, as well as decrease in refractory period, which is determined by the potassium channel opening mediated repolarization. So both depolarization as well as repolarization will be fastened and there will be more conduction through the AV node. So when we give beta blockers will produce opposite action. So beta blockers will decrease AV conduction and they will prolong repolarization and thus increase the refractory period of the AV node. We can see here that this solid line represents the effect of beta receptor activation. When we give beta blockers, what will happen? There will be decreased slope of phase 4 depolarization, which is mainly prominent in the SC node, and they will prolong the depolarization as well as repolarization, particularly in the AV node, thus markedly delaying the AV node mediated conduction. Now the effect of beta blockers, that is decrease in automaticity and decrease in conduction, is only seen when these two effects have been increased by adrenergic influence or when there is sympathetic or overactivity, which causes increased automaticity and increased conduction. In such condition only beta blockers are effective. So beta blockers are used mainly for atrial arrhythmias, as they are mainly producing their effect on SA node and AV nodal tissue and less effect on ventricular fibers, so they are mainly effective in treatment of atrial arrhythmias. They can be used for atrial tachycardias, extrasystole, which are usually seen in sympathetic overactivity, like when there is emotional outburst or heavy sudden exercise is done. They can also be used to control ventricular rate in atrial flutter and fibrillation by increasing the effective refractory period of AV node and thus reducing the conduction through the AV node and decreasing the frequency of impulses which can pass through the AV node into the ventricle. Beta blockers are usually used along with halothane anesthesia when there is high risk of adrenergic arrhythmias in presence of halothane anesthetic agent. They can be used in conditions like after myocardial infarction. In pheochromocytoma, pheochromocytoma is a tumor of adrenal medulla where there is excess secretion of adrenaline and noradrenaline from adrenal medulla, and there is high risk of arrhythmias. Now coming on to class 3, that is potassium channel blockers. So as the name suggests, these drugs act by blocking the potassium channels. As we know that potassium channels, they are responsible for the plateau phase as well as the repolarization phase. Repolarization phase both in pacemaker as well as non-pacemaker tissue. So if we see the effect on non-pacemaker tissue, when we give potassium channels, what will happen? Both the plateau phase will be prolonged as well as there will be prolonged repolarization. So all potassium channel blockers will produce such effect on action potential. As a result, action potential duration will be prolonged. So action potential duration will be prolonged and effective refractory period will be prolonged and QT interval will be prolonged. So if you all remember, we have discussed that QT interval tells us about ventricular depolarization and repolarization. So all the drugs which prolong repolarization, they also prolong the QT interval. And as there is increase in QT interval, increase in action potential duration, there is increase in the risk of Torsades de Pointes, that is arrhythmias which occur due to early after depolarization. Is a unique drug in among class 3 antiarrhythmic drugs as it has multiple actions. So apart from blocking potassium channels, it also blocks sodium channels, particularly in inactivated state. Thus, it also decreases the rate of rise of action potential. It blocks myocardial calcium channels as well as beta 1 receptors on heart. So because of these multiple actions, ultimately all these actions culminate into decrease in atrioventricular conduction and decrease in automaticity in ectopic foci. So amiodarone has properties of all classes of antiarrhythmic drugs, right from class 1, class 2, class 3 and class 4 antiarrhythmic drug. The exact reason of this mechanism is not known, but maybe due to its unique mechanism that it alters the lipid membrane of the myocardial cells, and all the ion channels or receptors are located in this lipid membrane itself, and thus it is responsible for alteration of multiple channels. So here we can see that amiodarone effect, it blocks all the channels responsible in action potential. Thus it will see this green line represents the effect of amiodarone. So this decreases the rate of rise of action potential by blocking the sodium channels. Then it prolongs the plateau phase because it is blocking the calcium channel as well as potassium channel, and it also prolongs repolarization by blocking potassium channels. Amiodarone is also known as broad-spectrum antiarrhythmic drug because of its multiple mechanism of action, and thus it is effective in a wide range of arrhythmias including ventricular arrhythmias as well as atrial arrhythmias. It can also be used for prophylactic uses. The T half-life, that is the plasma half-life of amiodarone, is very long. It is around 3 to 8 weeks, and thus it is given once in a day, and it is a good drug for even prophylactic purpose. Amiodarone has a wide range of adverse effect. As along with beta receptors, it also blocks alpha receptors, and thus it can result into hypotension. Blocking of beta adrenergic receptors can cause bradycardia and cardiac depression, particularly when it is given intravenously. It can cause nausea, gastrointestinal upset, photosensitization, skin pigmentation, particularly in the sun-exposed area. It causes blue-gray discoloration of the skin. It can cause corneal microdeposits. It can get deposited in the pulmonary area and can result into pulmonitis, alveolitis, and fibrosis in the lungs. And these pulmonary complications are the most serious complications caused by amiodarone. It can result into peripheral neuropathy, and as amiodarone contains iodine moiety, it can affect the thyroid gland also. It inhibits the peripheral conversion of T4 to T3. It can cause hypothyroidism, and very rarely it can also result into hyperthyroidism. You can see in this picture that there is blue color discoloration of the skin, particularly in the sun exposed areas, and this is peculiarly caused by amiodarone and is also known as blue man syndrome. So patients on amiodarone, they should be monitored for their pulmonary functions, thyroid functions, and liver functions, because there is high risk of involvement of these organs. Amiodarone, because it causes cardiac depressant action, it is contraindicated in patients with cardiogenic shock, in second and third degree AV block, because it will further delay the AV conduction, and in conditions of severe SA node dysfunction. Now, dronidarone is a similar drug included in class 3 antiarrhythmics, but it is not iodinated. So, because it does not contain iodine moiety, so it has no risk of thyroid adverse effect. It has shorter half-life. It is less toxic as compared to amiodarone, but also less efficacious. So it cannot be used in a wider range of arrhythmias similar to amiodarone. It is mainly used for supraventricular tachycardias, and we have to use it very cautiously in cases of systolic heart failure, because there are reports of increased sudden cardiac death in patients where dronidarone is given with systolic heart failure. Dronidarone can also result into severe hepatic dysfunction and hepatitis, so it should also be given cautiously in patients with liver disease. On to calcium channel blockers, the class 4 antiarrhythmic drugs. Nifedipine and related calcium channel blockers are mainly having effect on the peripheral vasculature, and thus they are not effective in cardiac conditions. But verapamil and diltiazem are the two calcium channel blockers which can be used in treatment of arrhythmias. Calcium channel blockers act by blocking the L type of calcium channels. And as we know that calcium channels are mainly responsible for the depolarization phase in the pacemaker tissue. Thus, calcium channel blockers significantly affect the action potential in SA node and AV node. Both are pacemaker tissue, while it has little effect on the non-pacemaker tissue. So the major action is calcium channel blockers. By blocking the calcium channels, they slow the zero phase depolarization, that is the rate of rise of action potential in pacemaker tissue. Here we can see that calcium channel blockers, they will decrease this dotted line represent the effect under calcium channel blockers. So they will decrease the rate of rise of action potential, and thus they decrease the particularly on the AV node. So they markedly delay the conduction through the AV node. So effect on SA node is decrease in heart rate, effect on atrioventricular node is markedly slowed AV conduction, and thus all the reentrant arrhythmias which are entering through the AV node, they will be terminated. PR interval will be increased because of delayed AV conduction, and effective refractory period of AV node will also be increased. So, calcium channel blockers are mainly used in treatment of arrhythmias which show re-entry through the AV node, and thus they can be used in paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia. They can also be used to control ventricular rate in atrial flutter and fibrillation. There are few other drugs which are not included in the classification of antiarrhythmic drugs, yet they are effective in treatment of certain arrhythmias. And one of the most important is adenosine. Adenosine is considered the drug of choice of paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia, and it is able to terminate this arrhythmia in 90% of cases within 30 seconds of administration. Its mechanism is very unique. It blocks adenosine receptors, which are G protein coupled receptors, and blocking of these receptors results into opening of potassium channels. Now, opening of potassium channels we know causes hyperpolarization, as the concentration gradient of potassium is always from inside the cell to outside the cell. So, opening of potassium channel will cause hyperpolarization of the cellular membrane and decrease in excitability of the tissue. Second, it also indirectly decreases the calcium current, and decrease in calcium current in SC node and AV node will result into decrease in conduction through these pacemaker tissues. Adenosine has a very unique pharmacokinetics, that it has a very short half-life, that is of 10 seconds, and this is because it is rapidly taken up by cells like red blood cells and endothelial cells, and there it is metabolized into 5-adenosine monophosphate and inosine. Now, there are certain important drug interactions which we should remember. First is of dipyridamole, which increases the action of adenosine by blocking its uptake into the red blood cells. So, adenosine is available in the plasma for longer duration, which may increase its action. Second, theophylline and caffeine, which are present in coffee and tea, they block A1 receptors, the receptors through which adenosine produces its action, and thus these theophylline and caffeine antagonizes the action of adenosine, and this is the reason why tea and coffee drinkers, they require higher dose of adenosine for its action to be produced. Now, when we give adenosine, it is to be given intravenously. It may cause transient dyspnea, chest pain, and flushing. These adverse effects are seen in 30 to 60% of patients, but because of its very short half-life, they are only transient. And even if there is cardiac arrest, it will occur only for a few seconds. Adenosine may precipitate bronchospasm, particularly in patients of bronchial asthma, and thus it is contraindicated in bronchial asthma. It is a very expensive drug and it cannot be used for recurrences. So these are the shortcomings associated with adenosine. As I have already told you that this is the drug of choice for treatment of paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia. Other drugs which are also used or which can also be used in treatment of PSVT are verapamil, which is a calcium channel blocker. We can also use beta blockers and digoxin. So all those drugs which delay conduction, which slows down the AV conduction, they can be used in treatment of PSVT. Then we have discussed what are AV blocks and how we categorize them into first degree, second degree, and third degree in a first class on antiarrhythmic drugs. So all the drugs which increase the atrioventricular conduction, they can be used in treatment of AV block, like atropine. It will antagonize the vagal action and will increase the conduction through the AV node. Similarly, adrenaline and isoprenaline, they will also increase the conduction acting on beta-1 receptors, and thus these three drugs can be used in treatment of atrioventricular block. Now I have put the summary of all the 4 classes of antiarrhythmic drug, and I will upload the PDF on this class so that through all these summary points which will help the various drugs in 4 classes of antiarrhythmic as well as miscellaneous drugs which are used in treatment of arrhythmia. I hope that all the 3 classes on antiarrhythmic drugs are easy to understand as well as remember. And if there are any queries, you all are most welcome. Thank you, everyone.